commercial and financial blockade imposed by the United States of America against Cuba and the removal of Cuba from the list of state-sponsored terrorism. And we leave the rest of the items under this subheading as, renumbered accordingly.
Second.
The Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that under item 12, which is public business, insert sub-item B, ending, that is, ending of economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed by the United States of America against Cuba and the removal of Cuba from the list of state-sponsored terrorism, and the rest of the sub-items be renumbered accordingly. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Obituaries and congratulatory remarks.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I wish to, on behalf of the entire Parliament, extend our sincere condolences to the family of the late Father Charles Martin, and of course to the Catholic community and indeed the entire nation on his untimely passing. Father Martin would have served the nation and the Lord and the Church for more than 25 years as a priest, and he did so dutifully. I even suspect, Mr. Speaker, that had he not been ill, he could have well been appointed as a bishop of Rosal because of his extraordinary commitment to the Lord and to the Catholic Church. But the Lord knows best, and the Lord has asked that he come home to be at his right hand. And so we empathize and sympathize with the family and the entire community. He shall be laid to rest on Wednesday morning, and we continue to pray for his soul. Just because, if you allow me also, I'd like to extend our sincere condolences and sympathies to the family of Clinton Morvan. Clinton Morvan is originally from Clifton, but lived in Savon Pie. He worked with ECHA for a very long time. He was really an authority on aviation, and it's going to be very difficult to replace somebody like him. You know, and life is so fragile, and sometimes we all, in our own personal reflection, ask ourselves, you know, what do we fight about in this world? Just on Sunday, this very Sunday he passed, he, along his family, lit the joy candle, and moments later, his family is suffering from heartache, and so life is so fragile. I want to extend to Esther, a long-standing friend of mine for so many years, and to his two daughters and to the entire family, our sincere condolences. He happens to have been the brother-in-law of Honorable Roland Royer, the member for Cottage and the Minister of Agriculture, so we extend our sincere condolences to them, and we shall continue to pray for them and pray for the soul of Clinton Morvan. I have known Clinton for about 30 years, and he assisted us tremendously during the preparation for the international airport, and he continued to provide free advice to us over the extended period of time. Also, Mr. Speaker, quickly, I'd like to extend sympathies to the family of Mrs. Nora Anatol from Lower Penville. Her son happens to be in the police force and has been working with me for a very long time. That is Martin Anatol. So I want to extend to him and to the entire family my sincere condolences in the passing. She was a real wonderful lady, and who provided me with tremendous support over the last 25 years as well. And so to the entire Lower Penville community, we extend our sympathies and our condolences. And Mr. Speaker, life is so fragile. Mr. Speaker, I'll be at a funeral on Wednesday. I'll be at one on Thursday. I have a funeral on Friday. As well as two on Friday, and then there's one on Saturday. so many deaths. But the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away, and in all things we give thanks to him. May the soul and the soul of the faithfully departed for the mercy of God rest in eternal peace. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to extend my congratulations to Pastor Jody Andrew on the elevation to the title of prophetess in the Lord's vineyard. This is a huge achievement for her as apostle. Thanks Dr. Williams, who was in the element last night during the ceremony, to the rank of apostle. She has been elevated at a time when church attendance is at all-time low globally, where it appears that people are less interested in going to church. And so her task is even greater with the added responsibilities. And the world is becoming more secular every single day. This is why we as people, we must ensure that we protect and defend the things that have defined us, like praying in school. Is something that we're losing, not by any action of anyone, but by a natural course. And therefore we need to find a way of stemming that natural course. And so we wish her well in her new title of apostle, and we have no doubt that she will continue to serve the Lord and his people with grace, determination, and honesty. It is something, and what I like about her, Mr. Speaker, is that she interprets the word the way that it is written. And this is something that's missing in the church. People have placed all kinds of personal views and inclinations towards the interpretation of the word. And sometimes when I hear some people preach, I try to go to the Bible to find out what I missed something in the Bible that is so different from what exists in the Bible. And I do hope that she'll continue to hold the straight and be one of those who stand out as a true apostle of the Lord on earth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Confirmation of minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I move that I beg to move that the minutes of the meeting of Friday 26, Monday 29, Tuesday 30th, and Wednesday 31st July 2024, and Tuesday 1st August 2024 be confirmed as circulated.
I second the motion, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting of Friday 26th, Monday 29th, Tuesday 30th, and Wednesday 31st July 2024, and Thursday 1st August 2024 be confirmed as circulated. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Announcements by Speaker.
I receive two correspondences from the Honorable Dennis Charles Pemberton, seeking to be absent from this honorable house because she's on government business. Also, I receive a letter, sad letter, but indeed, I have to just read it. I regret to inform the Honorable Roland Roy, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Blue Economy, inability to attend this meeting. The Honorable Minister has had a sudden death of a family member and therefore is unable to attend and participate in this House proceeding. So, the two members are excused and permission is granted. I would also like to, just for the interest of this honorable house, it has not been done before, but I think it is necessary to do it, that to give an indication of members of parliament where they went and who went to which workshops. So, Honorable Joseph Isaac attended the 46th Conference of the Caribbean, the America, and Atlantic of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Associations for the period 1st to the 6th of September 2024 in Georgetown, Guyana. Honorable Joseph Isaac and Honorable Finella Whelan Shepherd attended the House of Democracy Partnership and Pan-Americas and CARICOM discussion on enlightened economic legislation in the Caribbean Parliament in Miami, USA, from September 7th to 8th, 2024. Senator the Honorable Philip Rule and Senator Ostel Lockhart attended the World Parliamentary Forum Against Fascism, Neo-Fascism, and Similar Expression held in Caracas, Venezuela, from the 2nd to the 7th of November 2024. Honorable Jesma Paul and Senator the Honorable Philip Rule attended the regional workshop jointly organized by the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions Development Initiative and the Interparliamentary Union, together with the Caribbean Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions, that is held in Rodney Bay, St. Lucia, from the 21st to the 25th of November 2024. Honorable Joseph Isaac and Senator Laurie Victor attended the Caribbean Parliamentary Workshop hosted by Pan-Americas, the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and the United Nations and the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association on making the workshop of parliaments responsive to the needs of women and men in gender, held in Port of Spain, Trinidad, on 3rd to the 7th of December 2024. It was important to just highlight the balance. Members of opposition, members of government, members of opposition attending if deputy speaker, members of opposition attending if speaker, and a mix. We have to just highlight those things. We have to try to strengthen the democracy and make sure we have balance. Important, again, this is maybe the most critical one I want to just highlight there, that the Clerk of the House on the 14th of November 2024 wrote to honorable members of the House, and it reads, please find attached draft bills entitled Registration of Electors Act 2024, House of Assembly Election Act 2024, and Electoral Commission Act 2024 for your review in preparation for the next sitting of Parliament. Next sitting meaning this sitting. And I just want to highlight, this letter was sent to all members of Parliament on the 14th of November 2024, and this sitting is on the 16th of December 2024. So we have a month. As a speaker, I don't want to give any opinion. All I would like to say is, earlier when we started Parliament, I said all parliamentarians on both sides need to take their responsibility seriously. So if the clerk or the speaker writes a member, it has to be treated with that level of weight and gravity. I would say less said. So that means members of Parliament have a responsibility to do what they have to do. Consultation has to be across the board. So when you receive something, you have an obligation, especially members of elected members. Senators, yeah, you have the responsibility, but elected members, 19 on one side, 2 independent members. All members have a responsibility to ensure that their constituents are aware of what is happening. Don't hog the information and create a public outcry of lack of information. A whole month. So I'm not going to admonish any side, I'm just saying that members, when you get the information, elected members, you are responsible to disseminate the information. to the public or your constituents to ensure that the public is fully aware as to what is happening. So, yes. Yeah, all members. Okay. So that's it in regards to announcement.
Presentation of papers.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table Invest Dominican Authority Annual Report 2023.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table. Schedule of supplementary appropriation for the period January 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2024. Excise Tax Amendment Order 2024.
Government notices.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the later stage of the proceedings, I'll be taking the first stage of the bills shortly entitled Electoral Act 2024, House of Assembly Elections Act 2024, and Registration of Electors Act 2024, standing in my name on the other paper.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at a later stage of the proceedings, I will be moving the motions supplementary estimates of expenditure for the period January 1 to 30th June 2024, authorization for a credit facility from the International Development Association, IDA, for funding of the Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, authorization for a bank guarantee to secure the commitments made for an air service agreement, Excise Tax Amendment Order 2024, and will be taking all three stages of the bills shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024 Act 2024, Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission Agreement Act 2024, Investment Funds Act 2024, and Securities Act 2024, standing in my name on the order paper.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the later stage of the proceeding of this House, I'll be taking all three stages of the bills shortly entitled 1, the Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Act 2024, the Proceeds of Crime Amendment Act 2024, and Interpretation and General Clauses Amendment Act 2024, standing in my name on the other people.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, your mic is on.
Thank you. For the introduction of the bills for the Act to establish a pharmacy council to provide for the regulation of pharmacies, and to regulate the supply of drugs to the public and for related purposes. For the introduction of a bill for an Act to establish the Medical Laboratories Council to provide for the licensing, monitoring, and inspection of the operations of regulation of a medical laboratory and for related matters, and for the introduction of a bill for an Act to amend the Dominican Hospitals Authority Act 2021, number 8 of 2021.
Statement by ministers.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I want to make a short statement this morning, and that is in relation to the journey to electoral reform in Dominica. Now, Mr. Speaker, this journey started in earnest in 2013, thereabout. We drafted, that's the government drafted legislation. The government consulted with the Electoral Commission as required by the Constitution. The bills were circulated to the public. They were placed on the government website then, made available to all political parties and other interest groups in the country. We were hit by Tropical Storm Erica in 2015. And by the first quarter of 2016, we went and we purchased the equipment required to issue ID cards for the purpose of voting. The Parliament, the Cabinet preempted the Parliament by providing the Electoral Commission with all of the resources it required to effect electoral reform, including handheld machines to be placed in every single constituency to allow for greater access to the process by citizens and voters of the country, in the country. And we came to Parliament in May of 2017. The Hansard, Mr. Speaker, this is the Hansard day of 2017, May. Tuesday 23rd, Wednesday 24th, and Friday 26th May 2017. Comprehensive bills to address the issue of electoral reform in Dominica. And what were the main issues that the citizens of Dominica wanted, and of course the advice of the international observers, and in particular the Commonwealth Secretariat, who we sought technical assistance from to draft those bills. They sent us a legal practitioner who had drafted legislation in other countries in the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth endorsed the provisions of the bills as being able to satisfy the concerns and the observations which they made during the electoral processes of Dominica. The issue of ID cards, the issue of quote-unquote cleansing of the voters list. And we all agreed, Mr. Speaker, that we would have gone the route of certification or confirmation. All agreed on this. There were attempts to break into the Parliament. The police security barricade was breached. And in the process of maintaining peace in the country and averting bloodshed, the government removed the bills under the paper and sent it back for public consultation. I directed the Attorney General then to write to all political parties in Dominica, to write to interest groups in Dominica, and to ask of them which of the clauses in these bills and the sections in those bills that you have issue with. Let us not just make generalized statements, statements that are not based on fact, statements that are not based on you have read, and therefore I have read it, and I'm pointing out to you the areas that we have concerns with. That's how we're going to have an intelligent and sensible discussion. By saying, look, I have read this, and I do not agree with clause 1B or section 5A of the bill. And so the AG wrote, and none of them could respond to the Attorney General then of any issues they had with any provisions of the bill. Because the reality is, Mr. Speaker, they're not interested in these things. They're simply interested in creating destruction and mayhem in the country. And every time the police has to use resources that it doesn't have, and every time the citizens of Dominica have to be discomforted, there are arrangements to get into town to shop, especially in a Christmas time when everybody's seeking to make $1 and to buy the Christmas gifts and to prepare for Christmas, the birth of Jesus Christ. they have been impeded to moving across Dominica because the barricades all over Rosa, affecting small businesses from making their monies, affecting commerce from taking place in Dominica. To what end? So, there was stalemate. We decided that we will go and bring an international arbiter, someone who has no role to play or part to play in the political processes of Dominica. And we identified the most prominent and the most eminent person, jurist, the world has produced. Somebody who served on the UN court in Africa. Somebody who was the president of the CCJ. Somebody who was the chief justice of the OACS Supreme Court. There is nobody in the Caribbean who can parallel Sir Dennis Byron in terms of his intellect and his understanding of the law and the judiciary. And we brought him on. When we brought him on, the same people now today who are hailing him, similar to when Jesus Christ went up on a donkey and palms were placed at him and came back crucify him, they now hailing Sir Dennis Byron as the matter. His report. The country must be reminded that it's very same people who today are hailing Sir Dennis Byron report are the same people who burnt the report, who said they have no interest in this report, who said it was a waste of money, who said that Sir Dennis colluded with Roosevelt Skerritt and the Labour Party to draft this report. So, had we allowed the process to go forward in 2017, Mr. Speaker, we would have had electoral reform before the 2019 general elections. And people would have had their ID cards to vote. And we would have cleansed the voters list because the voters list will be less because dead people can't come and present themselves. And those who do not want to be no longer on the voters list would not avail themselves. And so we went through the process. And there's no time in the history of Dominica, not even when we had the constitutional reform consultations by Sir Telford Georges of blessed memory, and Sir Nicholas Liverpool of blessed memory, that we had such widespread consultation on the matter, as we did with electoral reform and the report of Sir Dennis Byron. There are members of the opposition who did not attend one session. They attended almost every session. And they were allowed to express themselves at every session. And we have taken on board the views expressed by the public in the redrafting and also the views expressed by the Electoral Commission. And we wrote to the Electoral Commission in May of 2024. We asked them whether they could respond to us by the end of June 2024. When I wasn't hearing from them, we sought to inquire what was going on. They said they wanted more time. We said, no problem, take your time. And they wrote to the Attorney General in September of 2024. So they had the bills from May, June, July, August, September, and that was fine, because we understand that it is tedious work if you're serious and you're reading every provisions, every clause in the bills, which we expect them to do. And the same bills that were sent to the Electoral Commission were placed on the government website in May of 2024. So that anybody in Dominica and outside Dominica who wanted access to the report and who was serious about electoral reform would have read it. You could have downloaded it from your phone, from your tablet, from your desktop, from your laptop, anywhere, and read it anywhere in the world, at any time you wanted to read it. Subsequent to the submission by the Electoral Commission, the Attorney General wrote to the Commission, Electoral Commission, and asked for clarifications on some of the points. In September, they responded in October, and the Attorney General took on board those observations. And the bill was finalized in the first week of November, and by the second week of November, that is to say, November 14th, those bills were placed on the government website. And I directed that both in May and in November, that we send a copy of the bills to every member of parliament, including senators, so that they themselves could seize themselves with the provisions of the law before they go to parliament. And if you have a concern, if you have a suggestion, or you believe that you can improve on the bills that we have before you, you would write and say so that those can be taken into consideration. When I researched, Mr. Speaker, the Parliament of Dominica, after our independence, there's no time, none whatsoever, Mr. Speaker, where such has happened in terms of the engagement of Parliament, in terms of the engagement of the public with regards to legislation. Because we understand in the government that electoral reform is akin to constitutional reform because of the fundamental right of citizens to vote. The fact that people fought and died to vote. The fact that in Dominica, to vote, you have to be a landowner. You have to be an estate owner. And if you do not have money, you couldn't vote in Dominica. If you didn't have land, you couldn't vote in Dominica. And that's recent history. That's contemporary history. Contemporary history. And so, in this business, Mr. Speaker, is give and take. We in the government, and myself in particular, I believe fundamentally that we should have gone the route of a national ID card. Because it is I felt then, and I still feel today, that it is a waste of money to go the route of a voter ID card, that the only utility of that ID card is for the purpose of voting. Whereas a national ID card, because we have the free movement of persons within the OECS grouping, you could use that national ID card to travel within the OECS. So there will be a greater reason or more reasons for you to keep it in your safekeeping and not lose it and not have to replace it every so often because you have multiple uses for it. And so in an effort to advance the dialogue and the consensus, we decided to give up the notion of a national ID card and go the route of a voter ID card. Now, the moment they heard Kerry change his mind, the moment they heard the government change their mind, then they no longer want voter ID card, they say they want a national ID card. Then, the Commonwealth suggested to us, back then in 2013, that we should study the St. Kitts model of electoral reform, which they had provided technical assistance to. And we went and we studied the St. Kitts model. And the St. Kitts model, one of the elements of the St. Kitts model was that the Electoral Commission of St. Kitts and Nevis went to major cities across the world where there were high concentrations of Kittitians and Nevisians to avail them of the opportunity to confirm their names on the voters list. So they went to Toronto, they went to St. Thomas, they went to St. Martin, they went to the BVI, they went to New York, they went to London, they went to many cities across the world, the Electoral Commission. And we were proposing to adopt that same approach. Because we all understand and appreciate the contribution of people in diaspora making to Dominica. And that we should not take away that right of them to keep the connection between themselves and their homeland. Again, Mr. Speaker, in an effort to advance in the process, the government decided, okay, we'll remove this. We'll remove it. So those of you who reside in overseas, you want to come to register, you want to come to confirm or remain on the voters list, you have to travel to Dominica. And if you travel to Dominica and you don't go to avail yourself of the confirmation process, your name will be removed from the voters list after the duration of the period that will be given by the Parliament to allow for confirmation. So at some point, Mr. Speaker, there'll be a cutoff point where those who do not avail themselves to the process will no longer be on the voters list or the list of electors, and thereby reducing the list of persons who are on the voters list. The Senator Paris challenged Thompson Fontaine for leadership of the party, and one of the main reasons he challenged Thompson Fontaine was because Thompson doesn't live in Dominica. So he's disqualified. That's one of the main reasons. So, Mr. Speaker, we took this decision very early in the cabinet, that when we come into Parliament to pass these bills in Parliament, that we would not go through all of the readings, which is settled practice in the Parliament. 99.9% of bills that have been brought to Parliament, Mr. Speaker, outside of the bill with regards to the ascension to the CCJ, which and the Constitution defines a process that you must follow, all bills have gone through all the readings on one sitting. But recognizing the fact that to allow for even more engagement, that we'll go for the first reading. And on top of that, Mr. Speaker, that we make the bills available to the members of Parliament in advance of the other paper. So they got 2 copies. Every member of Parliament got 2 copies of the bill. One on the 15th of November, and second one when they got the other paper. And to allow time to pass. So people know in a transparent manner what is it the government is taking to the Parliament. And they have this talk, Mr. Speaker, about plenty people, about the majority. Mr. Speaker, I represent a constituency in here, and I receive over 90% of the votes of those who cast the ballots in my constituency. I represent them. The Labour Party has 19 seats in Parliament, all of whom have very clear majorities, constitutional positions, members of Parliament. So who is the majority? This is a democracy. This is a parliamentary democracy. There shall be consultation, it's not legislation. It is only the Parliament, as per the Constitution, has the authority to pass legislation. And until Parliament has debated those bills and it has gone through the 3 readings, as required by law, it can't be law. And how long can we engage in consultation? In perpetuity? No bill can ever be perfect. That is why you have seen numerous amendments to legislation. Numerous. And even when you come to committee stage, it allows for amendments to be made as part of the process. And you cannot have electoral reform, Mr. Speaker, unless the Parliament gives to the Electoral Commission the authority in law. So my view on this, and the view of the government on this, is those who have interest, read the bills. And if you have observations that you want to draw to the attention of the Parliament or the government, then do so with references to clauses and sections which you have issues with. This notion of philosophical views and we don't want this and we don't want that, that's not going to work this time. So, if you cannot read for long periods of time, then read every 5 hours. Read something every 5 hours. But you have to read nonetheless. You have to read nonetheless. Because only reading what is there, you're going to make sense. It's by only reading what is there, you're going to make an educated and informed contribution. Otherwise, you're not serving the people properly. But what is happening is that every time the police have to mobilize, when the police are supposed to be looking for guns, illegal guns in Dominica, and providing security to citizens across the country, manning our territorial borders, they have to be there. People can't pay the water bills at the Wasco. People can't go to Inland Revenue to submit to get a driver's license. People can't get gas at 7-Eleven. This is not right. And so we have to elevate the discourse, we have to elevate the discussion here and be honest with ourselves. Be honest with ourselves. And so we're going to go with the first reading today, Mr. Speaker, as we've said. And you will have seen that we kept our word as we've done in all material times in the past. But the next time we come back, it will be for all three stages of the bill. Parliament has to act. And when it's people talking about the representing bodies and so on, 2-3 people in a body. What body? Who is we the people? Who is we the people? We the people. So let's be, you there on the opposition side, you have a duty. You have a moral duty. You have an ethical duty. You have a noble duty. You have an honorable duty to read the bills and to engage your constituents as elected members and to engage your parties with the document. This is why when you go to church, you go to a Bible. And now we have our phones with access to the thing. So you read. You read the Bible. Some pastors may be good to cram it. It's okay. But nonetheless, he has his Bible on. We have to read to know what is in there. That's the only way we're going to educate ourselves. But we must not continue to mislead the nation and to mislead the rest of the world. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say to the Parliament that when we come back here to pass legislation, we're going to invite the OAS to be here in Parliament with us, the Commonwealth, the OECS, CARICOM, and the EU to come and sit in the gallery and to witness a historic moment in this country and to pay attention to a potential case study of how legislation should really be passed in democracies, the extent of consultation. And I believe that the government has learned from that process. And in the future, we will even be more transparent in the way we go about engaging the public regards to legislation of all kinds of any form. But when we make those things available on the government website, as we're doing for the last 20 years, all the bills we're going to go to Parliament, we post on the government website, so people can have access to it. Unprecedented. And so let us be sensible. But it is clear that they do not want this thing. And I want to advise politicians. I don't like advising people, because that's not my duty. But laws are not going to make you win no election. What's going to make you win election is by being with the people, helping them in the circumstance. Not raising money for you, but raising money for them. And practicing what Jesus said in the book of Matthew, chapter 27. Mr. Speaker, I will end here. This is in no way to preempt my contribution to when the bills come to Parliament, but just to place on the record. And I heard some foolish politician from the OECS talking about laws coming to the Parliament and it's a travesty and so on. The man, anyway. Anyway.
Yes, I agree with you anyway.
Anyway. So, Mr. Speaker, I do hope from henceforth And I want to finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to say to the professionals out there. When we have knowledge, knowledge must be seen to be practiced. And we must appear to be enlightened. And you get enlightenment by engaging in sincere discussions, reading, and having a debate. You cannot join with something and trying to explain something that you have not read. I know our culture as a society that we are an oral society. We're an oral society. Reading is not a preeminent thing in our minds from a cultural standpoint. We're more into the storytelling. Somebody, yo di, moi di. You've never heard that I read this thing. This is why when you listen to talk show, I want to react to what the previous caller said, not what I have read. And so I understand that. But let us make an extra effort to read. I have taken time, Mr. Speaker, and I've read every single provision in those bills. And I shall read them again in preparation for the debate in Parliament. And what we will be proposing, Mr. Speaker, before we come here to Parliament for the three bills, is to have an informal session of the Parliament so we can discuss. We can discuss there as a final stage before we go to Parliament. But we have to pass this legislation before the end of the first quarter of 2025. I believe that we will be making a mockery of ourselves as a nation if we do not come to the Parliament in quick order in 2025 to pass this legislation and to give the authority to the Electoral Commission to start the process of electoral reform. And we're committed to that, and I do hope on the other side that you're committed to the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of bills.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Electoral Act 2024 be read the first time.
I beg to second the motion, Mr. Speaker.
Electoral Act 2024.
The bill has been read.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Electoral Commission Act 2024.
The bill has been read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled House of Assembly Elections Act 2024 be read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
House of Assembly Election Act 2024.
The bill has been read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Registration of Electors Act 2024 be read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
Registration of Electors Act 2024.
The bill has been read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission Agreement Act 2024 be read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled the Money Laundering Prevention.
Hold on 1 second. We need a second. I thought you stood to second. Second first. On the mic. On your mic.
I second it, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission Agreement Act 2024.
The bill has been read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill is shortly entitled Investment Fund Act 2024 be read a first time.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Investment Fund Act 2024.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Securities Act 2024 be read a first time.
Security Act 2024.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled the Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Act be read the first time.
Second.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Act 2024.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled the Pursuit of Crime Act Amendment Act be read the first time.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Proceeds of Crime Amendment Act 2024.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Interpretation and General Clauses Amendment Act 2024 be read the first time.
Second.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Interpretation and General Clauses Amendment Act 2024.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Pharmacy Act 2024 be read the first time.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Pharmacy Act 2024.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Medical Laboratories Act 2024 be read the first time.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Medical Laboratories Act 2024.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Dominica Hospital Authority Amendment Act 2024 be read the first time.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Dominica Hospitals Authority Amendment Act 2024.
The bill has been read a first time.
Public business, government business, motion.
Supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending 30th of June 2024. Be it resolved that this Honorable House approves the supplementary estimates of expenditure for the year 2023-2024 amounting to $103,621,922.64, the details of which are contained in the attached schedule. Mr. Speaker, I rise to present the supplementary estimates comprising of advances from the contingency fund during the 1st of January 2024 to 30th of June 2024, totaling $103,621,922.64. Mr. Speaker, Section 80, subsection 1 of the Constitution, as well as Section 12.3 of the Finance Administration Act, Chapter 6302 of the 2017 Revised Laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica, permit the Minister for Finance to advance urgent or unforeseen expenditures not originally approved in the annual budget and subsequently seek approval of the Honorable House for these advances by way of supplementary estimates. The funding source for the expenditures were as follows. $2,429,351, or 2%, was funded by the grants, while 98%, or $101,192,572, was funded by local means, mainly funds from the Citizenship by Investment Program. Mr. Speaker, our government has continued to show remarkable stewardship in managing the country's assets. We have demonstrated a strong commitment to openness and budgetary discipline through effective public financial management practices. We have reduced considerably the utilization of contingency fund warrants, which underscores our proactive approach to financial planning and prudent budgeting. Mr. Speaker, the responsible management of public finances has earned our nation a solid reputation, attracting numerous international partnerships and collaborations aimed at advancing our development agenda. Foreign organizations recognize the government's dedication to fiscal responsibility, which has been pivotal in securing the resources and support needed to further our growth and prosperity. Mr. Speaker, the Dominica's CBI program has maintained its high global standing, ranking second in the 2024 CBI Index. The program continues to excel mainly because of its legal framework, its robust due diligence process for every potential investor in our program, the management structures which have been put in place, and the stability of the program due to the proactiveness and sound decisions of this government. All of these features have allowed the program to retain its reputation among other nations. During fiscal year 2023-2024, 2 sets of new regulations were made to further safeguard the integrity of the Citizenship by Investment Program, including reinforcing due diligence processes and enhancing compliance measures, thus maintaining the program's strong global reputation. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, an additional $16,389,695 was allocated to the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development, Climate Resilience, and Social Security to compensate 7 internationally recognized due diligence agencies for carrying out thorough investigations on potential investors. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education and Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training, and National Excellence remains steadfast in its mission to educate and prepare our citizens to live productive lives in this complex and ever-changing society. Recognizing that education is at the heart of people and national development, our government continues to invest significantly in that area. Education transforms lives, and we fully understand its power in shaping the future of our nation. Mr. Speaker, in line with this commitment to educational advancement, the government is currently constructing a state-of-the-art new Dominica Grammar School. This project, now more than 50% complete, will deliver a modern high school with the capacity to accommodate 1,500 students from the Roseau catchment area, almost half of the primary student population. The new DGS will also include an auditorium accommodating 500 individuals, as well as recreation and sporting facilities, further enhancing the holistic development of our students. Mr. Speaker, an additional budgetary allocation of $17,841,547 has been spent on this crucial project, underscoring the government's commitment to creating an educational facility that meets the high standards and fosters excellence in our students. In the area of housing, Mr. Speaker, this compassionate and caring government has allocated an additional $50,772,744 to its modern resilient housing development program, ensuring that our most vulnerable citizens have access to stable and dignified living conditions. We are unwavering in our mission to provide affordable housing for Dominicans, because we understand that home ownership instills a sense of dignity and serves as a pathway to both short and long-term financial security. Our home ownership is not merely about having a roof over one's head. It is a crucial foundation for personal and financial well-being. It is with this in mind that this Labour Party government is continuing on this pathway, steadfast and focused with the implementation of a variety of policies and programs to ensure that every resident Dominican has a decent and affordable home. Mr. Speaker, an amount of $45,900 was received from the Green Climate Fund to cover staff payments under the Enhancing Direct Access, EDA, project for the period April 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2024. The EDA project is an initiative aimed at building capacity and establishing financial structures that increases access to and direct benefits from the Green Climate Fund for households, small and medium businesses, and for the vulnerable. This project is a critical step forward, providing climate change financing through grants and revolving loans, offering high concessional small loans for the homeowners and small business owners. Mr. Speaker, the National Employment Program has been providing valuable on-the-job training for many Dominicans and playing a significant role in supporting the cleanliness and beautification of our communities as well as our elderly. Bearing this in mind, additional amount of $16,188,585 has been invested in the NEP, underscoring this government's commitment to our people. Since the inception of this program, there have been numerous success stories. One such story, Mr. Speaker, is the meaningful employment found by individuals with disabilities, showcasing our commitment to inclusivity and aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. This government remains dedicated to fostering an environment where every citizen has the opportunity to grow, thrive, and contribute to our nation's prosperity. Mr. Speaker, for the fiscal year 2023-2024, additional grant funds amounting to $1,882,471 were received from the World Bank to complete the payment of the geothermal production and reinjection wells in the Roseau Valley. The geothermal development project is progressing at a steady pace. The last two major outstanding matters are the installation of the new transmission network and the 10-megawatt power plant. Works on both of these have started, and it is anticipated that geothermal power get to Domlec's grid by the end of December 2025. Mr. Speaker, this will be a significant milestone in government's quest to have 100% renewable energy generation available on the island by 2030. Mr. Speaker, last fiscal year, grants were provided for the government from the government of Canada amounting to $500,980 to support government with its transition from the Climate Resilience Execution Agency for Dominica, that is CRED, to the operationalization of the Climate Resilience Execution Unit, CRE, and the Major Capital Project Office within the Ministry of Finance. As of December 31, 2023, CREED concluded its impactful tenure, leaving behind a legacy of resilience planning and implementation that has shaped our nation's future. Building upon this success, the government has established the Climate Resilience Execution Unit and the Major Capital Project Office to continue to drive our resilience agenda forward. Mr. Speaker, the Climate Resilience Execution Unit will play a pivotal role in ensuring that Dominica not only recovers, but thrives in the face of future challenges. By embedding resilience into policies, practices, and community engagement, we remain steadfast in our commitment to safeguarding our people, protecting our environment, and securing the future for generations to come. Meanwhile, the Major Capital Project Office will oversee the implementation of key government infrastructural projects related to climate resilience, including the Lubia to Grand Bay Road Rehabilitation Project, the Roseau Enhancement Project, and the North Road, that's Portsmouth to Hatton Garden Rehabilitation. This office will ensure that those major initiatives align with our broader resilience objectives, reinforcing our position as a global leader in sustainable development. Mr. Speaker, I now commend for approval of the House these supplementary estimates to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The motion is now before the House for debate.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to make my contribution on the supplementary appropriation for the financial year 2023-2024. Mr. Speaker, please permit me to refer to my notes, please. Please permit me to refer to my notes, please.
Yeah, permission granted.
Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes additional funding to the various ministries beyond what was initially allocated in the previously approved budget. While I understand the challenges that arise throughout the year, I must stress that we are already grappling with a significant fiscal deficit. The introduction of supplementary funding risks the heightening of our national debt, which will place a greater burden on future generations. Mr. Speaker, we cannot allow our supplementary appropriations to become a routine practice. Our budget should be prepared with foresight and accuracy, and the government must demonstrate a commitment to strict fiscal discipline rather than relying on impromptu adjustments. Mr. Speaker, we are seeing figures here by the millions in these estimates. As I have mentioned in previous presentations, that there can be no way, and I said no way, that I would ever oppose to any project that would develop and be beneficial to our country. However, as stated earlier, we should have a higher level of discipline when it comes to our spending. Example, our due diligence fees. Over $16 million was spent on payments for carrying out investigations into potential investors. I encourage and I support the government on this because the government must safeguard its national interests, ensuring compliance with laws and regulations, protecting the economy, and promoting sustainable and ethical investments. But who or what firm conducts these investigations, Mr. Speaker? And at what cost it is to the state per investor? As I stated, Mr. Speaker, we must look at ways and strategies to reduce our spending because there are many other key areas within several ministries that also needs attention. Example, the Ministry of Education, where teachers complain of inadequate stationery for teaching. We have the Ministry of Health, where health professionals sometimes complain of inadequate supplies. Poor health centers, and Mr. Speaker, I touched on this during my last budget presentation. We need urgent attention for our health center, especially in Salisbury. We have no other choice but to go there, but the situation needs to be addressed. And sadly, the Ministry of Health did not appear on the supplementary estimates. Mr. Speaker, I suggest the government commits to improving budget planning and ensuring the future budgets reflect a more accurate picture of anticipated needs rather than repeatedly turning to supplementary appropriations. Mr. Speaker, there is a higher risk of mismanagement for wasteful spending if we do not budget properly. We have seen projects with inflated costs or unaccounted for delays, and we must guard against such outcomes.
Let us skip to the supplementary
Sorry,
estimate
Speaker.
and your tone there is imputing improper motive. And I just want to correct you on something. I see no member have said anything, but I don't want to get involved in the debate. But you spoke about debt, but I'm looking at the supplementary estimate, but I'm not seeing no section on debt. Yeah, so just to guide you, I'm not seeing any supplementary estimate, anything on that. So I don't want you to mislead the House or mislead the public. So if you want, you could correct your statement, but proceed.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one would say that approving this bill would set a dangerous precedent, but I say no. Instead, let us address the roots and causes of this budgetary mismanagement. There is always a solution to every problem. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, while the need for the supplementary funding is recognized in certain areas, it is essential that we approach these adjustments with a sense of responsibility and foresight. The supplementary estimates should not be seen as a quick fix, but rather an opportunity to reevaluate our financial priorities and ensure that resources are directed towards the most critical areas of need. I recommend the following actions to ensure that these estimates serve the public interest effectively. 1, prioritize essential services. We must ensure that the funds are allocated to sectors that directly benefit the well-being of our citizens, such as our healthcare, education, emergency services, with clear and measurable outcomes attached to each investment. Review and reallocate existing resources. Before approving additional allocations, we should at least explore whether there are opportunities to reallocate funds from less urgent areas to address the immediate needs in high priority sectors. We must also strengthen long-term financial planning. Rather than relying on supplementary appropriations as a regular response to emerging needs, we must work towards a more accurate and proactive approach to budgeting that better anticipates future requirements and challenges. By implementing these recommendations, Mr. Speaker, we can ensure that our financial resources are effectively and the supplementary estimate fulfill their intended purpose of addressing urgent needs without compromising the long-term financial health of our country. Thank you.
I recognize the Honorable Henderson, but if you want to yield, it's up to you.
I sympathize with the senator, but I
Okay,
regret
Honorable Paris,
my sympathy doesn't go that far.
Oh, you're allowing Honorable?
No, I said I sympathize with him for the events of yesterday, but my sympathy does not go that far. I will
So Honorable
be
Paris,
happy to accept your recognition, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry, my good friend, but I have to go back to my days of teaching Miss Paul at the time, the member for the Salisbury constituency. So I am going back to that, and I want to give a little lesson in what supplementary means. And if you go back to basic English, to supplement means that you are supporting something that is the principal thing. In this case, the budget. So there's a budget every year that the Parliament approves, and there are line items for every ministry and every operation, every project, every program. So we approve it. But from time to time, there are things that come up that were not provided for in the budget. As your colleague from Marigot likes to say, unforeseen events. In some cases, however, the Ministry of Finance may wish through its budgetary tools to determine what it would put in the budget, knowing it's foreseen, but in that case, for good, budgetary management, they may decide to leave some things out, and they recognize they will have the funds later to support it, so that they come back to us as the supplementary appropriation, which is really supplementing, adding, supporting the principal document for financing the operations of the state, which is the budget. So that's what this is. So I don't know who wrote this thing for you, member of the opposition. I'm a member for Salisbury constituency. And Mr. Speaker, I know some people will take offense, and maybe even on this side. I long for the day when we can come to the parliament and debate. I am tired of listening to people reading things that someone prepared for them. If you're presenting a motion, you're presenting a bill, of course you have to read. And reference to your notes doesn't give you the right to read an entire script. People must debate. I just came from Japan, Mr. Speaker, and I was able to witness a debate in the Diet, that is the parliament of Japan, and people are on their feet debating, arguing. No, there was no karate or anything like that. But it was very interesting to see members going back and forth. And I just long to see that. So when people give you notes, try to understand what they're saying, challenge them, and get the right people, at least if you have to get people to prepare notes for you. So Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to re-educate my former student, because I think somebody misled her. And I hate to see her go down that road, because normally I find she is good, on her feet. I think she needs to revert to that. So Mr. Speaker, but I rise in support, and to move a little more into the supplementary estimates. There are no loans, as you saw. There was a circulation of a document. So I'm not sure where you get this thing about loans and indebtedness and burdening the future generations. Like I said, the person who prepared the notes for you did not see this, or they've had no regards to it. I don't think you would do that. You would never mislead the House and the people of Dominica. So I think you should accept the fact that somebody prepared it for you and you did not read it before, so you didn't see. Because this is not imputing proper motive. She misled the entire country. She misled the entire country by giving the impression that we are coming to the House to approve the supply estimates with debt. There's no debt here. These activities were financed from grants and from local funds. Now, in the case of, she made reference to the amount allocated for due diligence fees. The fact that we have to come by way of supplementary estimate to pay due diligence fees, it means that we're doing better than even we projected. That is what it means, These due diligence fees are paid to, and by the way, you're asking about which companies. You think it's us that make our companies to do that? These are companies of high repute. Companies from Canada, the USA, the UK. These are where these companies are coming from. These companies conducting the due diligence, these are not fly-by-night or some kind of funny, company that came together and we're paying them to do this. So, one, we are doing better because more people are applying. And two, the companies are companies of high repute. But you said you don't know which these companies are. You want to see. Go on the government website and you will see. And if you want, look them up. And you will see that they are serious companies. Serious companies. I don't even want to call their names, but you can go and see. Because they have to go through a process before they could have been approved to provide due diligence services. Mr. Speaker, and in the case of the Ministry of Energy, we got a grant here, by the way. We're not paying back for it. It's $1.8 million grant for geothermal energy development. And if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to speak to what that 1.8 million, well, let me give the exact amount. Sorry, but I have to get some visual aids here. 1,882,000 $471.19. And those funds were provided by the World Bank by way of grant. And it's not really the World Bank money, by the way. I'll tell you a little secret. It was actually money that I helped raise. It was a $15 million US grant that SIDSDOC was able to get when I was the chairman of SIDSDOC back in 2012. And Dr. Albert Binger and I went to Japan. Back then, we went to Okinawa. We went to an island called Kumajima, where they were experimenting with OTEC. And we were able to negotiate with the Japanese government for a grant for all small island member states, developing states that were members of SIDSDOC, to get funding to do the transition into renewable energy. So we in Dominica were able to get $2 million US from that amount, and it was managed by the World Bank. And this is part of the entire package that we got from the World Bank. We also, as you will recall, I have reported here, were able to secure a $10 million grant from the government of the United Kingdom as part of the financing for the drilling operations. Those funds were managed by the World Bank. And this amount allocated in the supplementary estimates are funds that went to pay to defray the cost of the drilling of the production and the reinjection wells in Loda. Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to give a brief update on geothermal, since it is contained in the supplementary estimate. I have to report to the House that we've made tremendous progress since the approval of the loan the agreement that was approved last year, and subsequently the loan, which was agreed last December, when we were able to provide a guarantee to OMAT Technologies for the development of the 10 megawatt geothermal power plant in Loda. To date, we have completed drilling, we have tested the wells, and the reports were beyond expectations. Excellent quality of resource. We have been able so far to meet most of our targets, that is to say, the effectiveness of the agreement that we signed with OMAT last December. We have been able to also sign up, and we have seen mobilization for the contract for the development of the transmission network. So we are progressing, and clearly we seem to be on track to deliver a 10 megawatt geothermal power plant by December 2025, hoping that we can commission it in early 2026. To date, we have prepared the site for the power plant, and D-Threads, local company, was contracted or has been contracted. They're still on site, preparing the location. They have completed the leveling of the first section where the power plant will be located, and they are now continuing and moving towards the pipeline, preparing the area where the pipeline will be laid to connect the production and the reinjection wells. So we are progressing, and I'm very happy with the progress that is taking place so far. On site, we have already the major equipment. The biggest part of the power plant is really the cooling towers. And last summer, we saw the movement on site in Loda. Some of this is 20 ton, 60 feet long. We had about 20 of them brought to the site. That's for the cooling towers. We're expecting that by January of next year, we will see the landing of the equipment for the power plant. All the equipment required to construct the power plant, so everything will be on site. We pray that everything goes well, since especially some of the equipment are coming all the way from the Middle East, and we know that this is an area with a little turbulence. So we hope that we'll see the arrival of the rest of the equipment on site in Dominica so that construction can begin. So far, the preparation of the steel frame for the building for the power plant is being done in Trinidad and Tobago. As well, we're hoping it will land in Dominica early next year, so we can see the commencement of that part of the project as well. The good news we received a few days ago is that the Caribbean Development Bank and the CARICOM Development Fund the board of the CDB in particular has approved the financing of the power plant based on an application submitted by OMAT and supported by the government of Dominica. The CDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Green Climate Fund representatives were on island about 2 weeks ago, and they are very satisfied with the progress so far. And last week, the CDB board approved the financing of the power plant. That is not a loan by the government of Dominica. So remember, for Salisbury, we're not indebted the state further. This is a loan contracted by OMAT, but supported by the government of Dominica, because it's only a member state of the CDB can approve such an application. So that is great news. We've also signed up with Talca Peru, a company out of India, which will be constructing the transmission network. They are on island, they have been mobilized, they've received their first payment of $3.9 million US from the World Bank as part of the contract sum, and they are in advanced stages of getting ready to begin construction. So that is also great news for us, and we expect to see very soon, we'll see some activity from the Rosa Valley going all the way across to Focole, and that is in fact really, really good news. Mr. Speaker, we are also related to geothermal. We are now in the advanced stage of developing, or installing rather, a battery energy storage system. We call it the BESS, B-E-S-S, from funds from the United Arab Emirates, and I'm very happy that we finally getting to complete this project. This has been years in the making, and I am very, very pleased because I was, at the time, ambassador, and I remember Minister Ian Douglas at the time signing that agreement a day before Hurricane Maria. So it's a while back. And because of the many challenges we had in between, we had tremendous delays on that project. We've seen prices escalate during COVID. We've seen all sorts of things happening. We had to do some redesign, retendering, and now work, the civil works, almost completed. The equipment, all the equipment are here in Dominica. They arrived about 2 weeks ago, and we will expect to see installation in January for commissioning by February of 2025. So this is also good news, and I'll be very happy to report that next year when I visit the IRENA conference in Abu Dhabi, because we have to, it will be an exciting time for us to thank, first of all, the UAE, but also to report on the progress that we are making. And sometimes people wonder why we travel, but you know the saying, si kwa pa mache pa kagwasi. And I'm not going to translate that, so don't look for it. I will withdraw it. But it is important that we attend some of these meetings, because that is where we make representation. And as I said, it was a long time ago I went to Japan, we got $15 million US, and we're able to bring 2 million to Dominica. And it was a few years ago that I went to the UAE. We're able to apply for $5 million US grant for the BESS. And now we are seeing all of this unfolding. Sometimes they take time, admittedly, but we are happy when they do materialize. So, Mr. Speaker, I really just wanted to speak to this item on the supplementary estimate. And I want to thank the Ministry of Finance for their support and cooperation. I know at times I gave the Financial Secretary a few headaches in dealing with these matters, but I am very happy at the end we've been able to get them done. So thank you very much, Ministry of Finance, thank you, FS, and your staff, and we're looking forward to working with you as we continue to develop this power plant. Mr. Speaker, before I sit, I would like to, well, I mean, after years of saying, Madam Speaker, you will allow me a slip of the tongue. But I just want to thank DGDC, the Dominica Geothermal Development Company, especially the Managing Director, Sir Fred John, a very good friend, and his staff. They have really, really worked, and we're developing, one of the exciting things about this is that we're developing some skills in geothermal energy development in Dominica. Mr. Dalton Elwa, who was trained in New Zealand, he's been on this project for a number of years now, and he's now becoming, you know, one could almost say an expert in his field. He's had so much practice so far, and we're hoping that the next step is to get some Dominicans to go to, we're talking to Mexico, we're talking to other countries that have geothermal plants, so that they can go there and learn how to operate and maintain these power plants, so that eventually this will be operated by Dominicans. And Dominicans are playing an integral role in the construction as well. Don't underestimate the knowledge that we have in Dominica. I remember Lynn John became our expert in safeguards, and I know she's providing the services elsewhere now, because we have been able to train our people, we've been able to give them the opportunity to operate, and they have proven to be some great resources that we need to encourage and support, and we need to now invite other professionals to develop some skills in that area. I know that D-Treads has been on site, but Mr. Robinson has some experience in wells and maintenance of wells, as well as the pipelines that are essential for connecting, in this case, the two wells. And we have brought him on board with the developers, so that perhaps they can take advantage of his skills. So we encourage Dominicans to be part of this, and we're happy that the developers are engaging Dominicans. In some cases, may not always be able to, but as much as possible, we are pushing so that they can engage locals, so that we can be the ones doing this. And when the power plant is up and running, that we're the ones who eventually be able to operate it, maintain it, and develop the skills that in the future could even be contracted outside of Dominica. As Grenada and St. Lucia, Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis are moving towards developing geothermal energy, we can provide them with some of our own expertise or experience, as we've seen so far, because I know Fred John has advised the CDB, he has worked with Nevis in developing their geothermal project, and we have to continue to create opportunities for young Dominicans and young professionals. And this is why I think sometimes it's unfortunate that rather than engaging, people are just there criticizing. Let us engage one another, and let us see how we can work together so that we can make this work for Dominica. Geothermal energy holds great potential for Dominica's development. Transmission line investments are investments for the next 40 years. We have to embrace this project, and we have to be of one accord. Some of us are still having our hangovers on why we didn't go solar, why we didn't go this, why we didn't go that. Geothermal energy, and now the literature is all over. You can go to mainstream media and you will find stuff about geothermal energy, because it is now being seen as part of the solution to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in a very reliable way. Not intermittently, not depending on storage, but being able to give you baseload power 24/7 at a cost that is a fraction of what it would cost you to have the intermittent sources, because of the high investments that are required for energy storage. So we have to be consider ourselves fortunate in Dominica. And yes, it will not be the perfect deal. Yes, a lot of us would go and say, we could have done better. But that is the luxury that you have when you're a spectator. That is the luxury you have when you're not accountable to anybody. But when you have the responsibility to deliver and to get things going, there are times that you have to make decisions which are compromise decisions. And nobody negotiates with themselves except you. Unless you are lost your faculties, you're not going to negotiate with yourself. You are, but when you negotiate with someone else. And both of you cannot get everything you ask for, otherwise it's not a negotiation. And you have to reach a happy place where both parties can live with it. And that is what we have done. That is what we have come up with. So I know obviously there are questions, there are issues, there are people who always feel that this should be so or that should be so. But that is what you get when you have an outcome. But it is in the best interest of the people of Dominica. And I'm very happy that we've had the support throughout this project by the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister has remained steadfast in this process and has allowed us quite a bit of leeway at times and guided by us and have given us the benefit of the doubt, and I want to thank him for that. And this means that we are getting there, and we're looking forward to that. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity, and my friend, I look forward to hearing from you on this and other matters. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Paris.
Mr. Speaker, fellow colleagues, good morning. It is good to be back here, Mr. Speaker. You're not somebody to talk about voice, nah? Take it easy, you're here. Mr. Speaker, good morning. It's nice to be back here with you to deal with the people's business. I won't be long, Mr. Speaker. I only have a few questions. I hope Senator Blackmore is prepared to respond to some of these questions that I'm about to ask. Very short supplementary, not a lot. I'm very happy that the Minister of Energy, member for Granby, went before me, because he clarified something for me, and I'm hoping that he can maybe later on, or somebody else can take up a challenge and further clarify on it, because he was trying to school the member for Salisbury, as if he had not done a lot of that in the past, as if he felt like he hadn't done a good enough job. But he clarified something, and he said that some of the supplementary that we're seeing, they're not necessarily unforeseen. Did I get that right? They're not necessarily unforeseen. It's just a little, I don't want to say sleight of hand, put it on the back end, so, Mr. Speaker, I want to touch on two very critical areas where we see unforeseen expenditure. And what I was hoping to hear from the Minister of Finance was a bit more clarity on how we got to these figures that we're seeing, particularly in the area of under the Ministry of Education. Earlier this year, Mr. Speaker, we spoke about the grammar school project. And it was interesting to hear from the Minister of Finance, and maybe later on in his wrap-up he can touch on it, that we are just over 50% complete on that particular project. And Mr. Speaker, in the last financial year, in the last fiscal period, we had an allocation of $5 million for the continuation of the school. We saw an increase of that of over 500% from what was allocated for. Now, member for Granby, maybe you're right.
The proceed, you could say member for Granby, or you could say the Honorable Minister.
It's all right, Senator. So, maybe the member is correct that it's not necessarily unforeseen expenditure. We somewhat maybe knew those expenses were coming. Because, Mr. Speaker, we talked about this in July. I'm struggling to find out how on a construction project, where I assume all of the procurement rules were followed, we did all the takeoffs, we did the measurements, we had designs, and we have a schedule of works. But yet still, in one fiscal period, we're seeing these types of unforeseen expenses. I don't understand how that happens, and maybe it's something that I don't understand, Mr. Speaker. So we're leaving room for it, so that someone can explain how we get that. Because, Mr. Speaker, both you and I know, because I know you in the field.
No, don't get the speaker involved. So you know. So continue, proceed.
Withdrawn, Mr. Speaker. Construction projects don't have that type of overage, because people who fund projects, especially prudent people who are managing their finances prudently, don't want to spend 500% more than they're allocated for. So you have the chance to explain. So, Mr. Speaker, we can get to the point where we explain that. Now, Mr. Speaker, you know who I'd like to hear from? it would be interesting to hear. It would be interesting to hear from the contractor, because it seems as though the contractor on this project has a blank check. And all of the workers on the project should be very, very happy with what's going on, because they don't have a shortage of money. They don't have a shortage of finances. Well, Mr. Speaker, somebody can explain. I see a lot of people getting hotter on the color, so we can explain. Let's look at the area of modern housing development. Another area we looked at in July, Mr. Speaker. Similar type of arrangement, construction projects. Studies, designs, costing. What I wanted to hear from the Minister of Finance, we didn't get it in July. Now that we're dealing with it under supplementary allocation, what I wanted to hear was a little bit more detail as to how we are seeing these overages. We understand that money has to be spent, and we're kind of comfortable with the idea of supplementary. What we want to know is how, why, what's the details? And it's not much. Because, Mr. Speaker, if we're spending that type of money on these projects, when we go around and we visit these projects, we should see them active. We should see them bubbling. Employees should be excited with the type of work and the fast pace in which they get paid. I mean, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to bring you into it again. So I'm going to say, we know. That's not what we see. So a little bit more clarity would help. Senator Blackmore. A little bit more clarity would help. Well, you know my style. Mr. Speaker, a little bit more clarity would help. So, Mr. Speaker, with these two items that we wanted to touch on, it's short, we have a lot of work to do today. I'm going to yield the rest of my time to anybody who would like to just help us with a little clarity. Tell us how we got here. Give us a little bit details as to how we're seeing these types of unforeseen expenses. Maybe we might want to give the member for Grammy some more time to tell us, well, that's not exactly how it went. We knew it was coming, but we had to do it differently.
Yes, just for caution, moving forward, all ministers refer to them the Honorable Minister. Members who are not ministers, no, because you said it flippantly, so I don't want to distract you. I wanted you to go with your flow. No, but not to do that. Just ministers, Honorable Minister. Members who are not ministers, member for such, and senators, then senators. Honorable Prime Minister, I recognize you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I've always known that if you do not know something, you ask a question. And if you ask a question and you do not know, you should not proceed to give yourself a response to that question. And that is a penchant of the senator. First of all, I don't know why he's still here. Because the reason why the member of Marigot is not the leader of the opposition is because there was an agreement that they should not associate themselves with any political party. And if they do, then they will not hold a position.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
No, there's no point of order. No, point of order. Go point of order.
Yes, proceed.
That is not true. And so the Prime Minister is imputed in proper motive. That is not true. The two members do not have an agreement. They do not have that agreement, and they are right here. They can speak for themselves and clarify it.
Well,
the agreements that I know of between the two elected members.
Okay, member, take your seat.
It's very, very clear, and they can speak to it.
Take your seat.
The information that the Prime Minister
is a statement of fact, so the Prime Minister will have to expand on what he means.
And he should retract it.
There is a statement of fact, so if it is erroneous, the Prime Minister will decide. So it's a statement of fact. So let me hear what the Prime Minister has to say.
Mr. Speaker,
proceed, yes.
Mr. Speaker, there are correspondences to that effect. This is public knowledge. And I would give both members the opportunity to say what I'm saying is not true. They're right there. So what do you want to speak for them for? You are elected, you're not part of the agreement, you do not know of the contents of the discussions. So but you don't know about it. So know that you can't tell them what they discuss. But if you did not but you wrote to the president. You signed a letter? Yes. You signed a letter. Anyway, Mr. Speaker. Anyway, Mr. Speaker. Anyway.
Senators, please allow the Prime Minister, he's on his feet.
Mr. Speaker, there's a relevance of integrity. What is good for the member for Marigot is good for you. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, we have to come here and be educated about the processes of budgeting and the parliamentary system. If we do not know, we should ask the question. And that's the only way we're going to learn. And we also have to acquaint ourselves with the rules of the House, acquaint ourselves with the Finance Administration Act, and acquaint ourselves with the provisions of the Constitution which speak about the finances of the state. Now, when you look at the budget estimates, Mr. Speaker, this document that many people don't take time to read is a 3-year cycle on a project. A project may cost $100 million, but you will not put $100 million in your first year. It's not different from building a house, where the bank gives you a schedule of payments. The engineer on site or the project manager on site that's listed by the bank will have to come on site to verify work has been done. And there are times that the bank has to give you one of these scheduled payments before it is supposed to be due based on the agreement you have with them, because more work has been done on that project than originally agreed to. Your schedule of works. And that schedule of works is informed by the schedule of payments and vice versa. You get good weather, you advance the project, and therefore you have the supplementary appropriation. But to give the impression that this is cost overrun, this is not true. This is not cost overrun. If the project costs $45 million and you spent $5 last year, and you budget $5 this year, but you progress heavily, you might buy more materials, the project is advancing faster, you work on weekends as you did not do before, and there are additional claims. So it's not a situation, Mr. Senator, Honorable Senator, that there is cost overrun as you imply. No. It is advancing, and this is why the Parliament recognizes, and this is why the drafters of the Constitution, the drafters of the rules, the drafters of the laws recognize that you will have circumstances like that. And therefore, it's not constricting the state from advancing the economic development of the state and wait for the next financial year to come. In this year, we decided we're building more homes than we originally agreed to, because you are more available contractors who are prepared to work. And therefore, you will have more work being done in that period of time than you originally planned for. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, is that monies are not sitting in the banks waiting to be spent. Monies are generated as we go every single day. The Ministry of Finance has to check how much money they have in the accounts to spend. And sometimes you have more money to spend for a particular project than you originally envisaged. And then you spend it because you would like to get the project completed faster than you originally planned for. So it's not a situation, Mr. Speaker, where it is cost overrun, no. So in respect of grammar school, it is not a cost overrun issue. No, unforeseen, no. It is the advancement of the project, and more claims are being made than you originally expect. That's why I say unforeseen. So unforeseen has different connotations. Unforeseen connotation, you know you have the project. You understand what I'm saying? You know you have the project. So this is what it is. The Minister for Foreign Affairs and Energy mentioned to you about the project that was signed the eve of the hurricane. And we're only now having it implemented at the state, so that's why you have only $1.8 million. But if you go to the budgets of previous years, you will see that it has been in those budgets. And so sometimes you have a project that's $5 million. In order to balance the books and so forth, you put $1 million. If you spend more than the 1 million, you advance the next year to this year. That's what it is. Likewise, Senator, you may have a project and the funds are not there at the time that you want to spend it. And when the monies come, you have a period of time to which you have to spend it, because sometimes the external agencies give you a limited time to spend the money. So sometimes you have to now advance the procurement process, for example, buy all of the equipment, all of the material you need in advance of starting the actual project, because you are running against time. So you have all sorts of issues there. And this is why the Parliament, the drafters of the laws, recognize that you'll have those circumstances. And it allows you to come to the Parliament to explain. Likewise, similarly with regards, as the Minister for Foreign Affairs indicated, with regards to the due diligence fees. Do we say no more business because Parliament only approved $10 million for due diligence fees? Or do we take the business and come to the Parliament by way of supplementary appropriation to pay the due diligence agencies? What do we do? Or do we stop the grammar school because we only budgeted $5 million for the grammar school, and tell the students already that they've already been inconvenienced, and we're seeking to fast track the process, spend more than we would spend during that period of time to get the project completed so that the students can come back to a state of normalcy? That's what it is. And if you go to the hands of the House, you will see every government explaining those facts. What you read there, Senator, is the same thing that Mr. Linton read there many times, you know. The same language. Yeah, read. Yeah, he always used to read. He can't speak for more than 2 minutes without a script. Mr. Linton. You know what I'm saying? We have notes, you have type of notes. You know what I'm saying? So this is what it is, Mr. Speaker, and I believe that once the money is available, Mr. Speaker, the attitude of the government, that once the money is available, we should spend it to benefit the people dominant. We cannot delay it. We can't tell the people who are waiting for homes, no, we can't give you the home now because Parliament only approved $10 million for homes. And interestingly, Mr. Speaker, this week I believe will be giving up some 50 for homes. An average cost of $200,000 per home is over $10 million. $10 million are we giving to people out this Christmas by way of a home. Enhancing the security of people, enhancing the quality of life of our citizens. And so every opportunity we get, where money is available, we put it into the economy to benefit the economy. And we should not do so by delay. So there's nothing untransparent about this thing. There's nothing lacking transparency in this thing. There's nothing lacking accountability in these things. It is clear. The explanations are there. The minister went and gave additional details. And that's what it is, a customary stuff. And so I support the supplementary appropriations there. These are monies that we can account for. These are monies that we can justify, whether it's a national employment program where we spend $16.18 million. The Parliament would have approved some money because the idea of the NEP is that people will graduate out of the program, and therefore you reduce on the overall amount of the NEP program. But you have situations, for example, like what happened to Clare Harbor, where we're absorbing people to help them carry through the period between their redundancy and we get them back with Clare Harbor. There are people who may have lost their job for one reason or another, we're holding their hands during that period of time. That's what it is. And so you have now to go and fetch the monies now to pay those persons because Parliament did not approve it. But Parliament gives you the authority in law to spend and to seek parliamentary approval of those expenditures. And if you go within the Ministry of the Environment as responsible for the NEP, and the Treasury and the Ministry of Finance, they can give you the names of everybody who got paid. But I don't think that's the information you want. When you talk about details. And in respect to the due diligence firms, you go to the government website, all of the names are there. And the law that was brought to Parliament last year speaks to how much you pay the due diligence firm, how much applicant pays for due diligence report, which is the cornerstone, the backbone of the program. And so let us not continue this thing about giving people the impression that there's no accountability and no details. The details are there. And the minister gave a 30-minute speech giving details. If you have questions, which is customary, which is okay and necessary, ask those questions, but don't be emotive. Don't try in a sly way to be misleading to the public. You have an opportunity to ask a question. We're here to respond. We'll respond. But don't ask a question by way of a statement. And your statement always is pregnant with mistruths and misinformation. This is the Parliament. This is not a talk show. This is not Facebook. This is not a group chat or Facebook chat group where people say all kinds of things with no control. The Parliament. We're not opposed to asking questions, but ask a question and let a response be given. But don't try to mislead the public. And we have to be careful. We have to be careful. All of us will have people whispering things in our ears. All of us will have people giving us notes to say things. But you within yourself must be satisfied and comfortable with what people ask you to say for themselves. Because people have all kinds of motivations. All kinds of motivations. And when people give you negative things to say, they never have good intentions for anybody, including yourself. Because at the end of the day, it is your words. No longer theirs, it becomes yours. And the record will show, the handset will show what you said and your contribution in the House for posterity. So your great-grandchildren will come to the Parliament one day and they'll read what Granny said. And Granny said that, boy, what? Grandpa said that? What could Grandpa say that? But that's not true. And Mr. Speaker, I try to my best, because there are a number of things we could stand and object to what they say. Imputing improper motives, misinformation, but we're 19 and we're 2. So we allow for a lot of flexibility, a lot of leeway for members to say what they have to say. But do not take advantage of it unduly. We allow for engagement. There's nothing you can say that we can't respond to. But if we don't object to it, if we don't start objecting to it, the record will show that it was said, and it was said without objection. So I want the public to understand this. Why is I believe about that we have to start standing up, Mr. Speaker, and raising objection to some of the things that they say during their presentation. So the record can reflect those things. Because even the member for Salisbury made imputed a lot of improper motives. Very unparliamentary with some of our contribution. Likewise, the senator, imputing improper motives. And we allow them to speak unimpeded. And I believe that, on reflection, is a bad practice of the government. And the government side will have to start standing up dutifully and diligently and raising objection to what they say. And not take into consideration the political point, but take into consideration the legal and constitutional point, based on the rules of the House, that we have to stand and object. And I intend to do so from henceforth. Because the record will show that you said these things, we all sat there, they were not true, they were misleading, they were falsehoods, and we allow you to go your merry way to continue to repeat those things. And so I am warning everybody in this House to cease and desist from that practice, because the rules do not make arrangements for that. The Speaker cannot intervene because the Speaker not to intervene in the debate of the House. And therefore it is left to us, based on the rules of the House, to object to these things. And if you have a question, ask a question. But don't go on and respond to your question and in the process, imputing improper motives. And we're going to sit there to allow it. We allow it because, I mean, a few of you and plenty of us. And so we take into consideration. You have 30 minutes to speak. That's why I allowed the member for Marigot to respond to the budget debate last year. Unprecedented. Unprecedented. Because we wanted to hear more voices, more divergent voices, so that at the end of the day, the decisions are more enriched. But the decision process must not, this house must not be seen as an extension of a talk show. No, it must not. Mr. Speaker, I do hope that with my short intervention, I was able to clarify and to provide some education to my colleagues on the other side on the points that they raised on this matter and so on. And I'm hoping that, but anyway, that's okay. Thank you.
Yes, I think the Prime Minister is clear, but I would just say, in regards to erroneous statements, I will intervene. I don't want to get involved in the debate, but for example, where the member said that we have debt, to point it out, because there is no debt on the supplementary estimate. Honorable Senator Blackmore,
Thank you, Mr.
I
Speaker.
recognize you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How can I speak after the Prime Minister, after a lecture, Mr. Speaker? Well, Mr. Speaker, I noticed on the clock has 10 minutes to 10. And I know it's now about, according to my time, the accurate time is 12:15. So I hope we take that into consideration. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this measure before this Honorable House, where the Honorable Minister of Finance, thank you, Honorable Minister, is asking for the approval of this Honorable House, the supplementary estimate amounting to $103 million, $621,921. Mr. Speaker. Now, I was told, Mr. Speaker, well, the Senator Paris, Delbert, called my name several times, and I was told, with your permission, that he was told yesterday that in order for him to make it politically and to banter with the Prime Minister, he has to be tougher because he's too soft. So that was manifested there this morning, so he wants to fight. He wants to fight. So he has to come and demonstrate and try to be muscular in his expression, Mr. Speaker, to satisfy his constituency, apparently, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, let me say, Mr. Speaker, because what was clear this morning, the both members on the other side who presented, Mr. Speaker, they cannot see too well because they don't read. They are repeaters. They repeat what people tell them. Now, the Senator, Paris, certainly is not able to see things. He doesn't have the capacity to see the unforeseen. That is why he did not see yesterday that he was going to be beaten, Mr. Speaker. All right, so that was manifested there, Mr. Speaker, quite clearly. Mr. Speaker, we're talking about unforeseen.
Hold on one second, Honorable.
Unforeseen.
Not aside.
Yeah.
If you want to stand on your feet, you need to stand on your feet.
Yeah.
It's not aside. So proceed. If
Yeah.
you want to interject, stand on your feet and quota stand in order, and we move on.
Mr. Speaker, I want to advise the Senator going forward. In politics, you know that, Mr. Speaker, you were there. If you want to banter with the stallers, like the Prime Minister, Dr. Henderson, myself, you have to have what they call a feuilleton. Understand? Feuilleton.
What is this?
Well, you know, when you don't have feuilleton, you should do four. There's like balance.
Feuilleton, balance.
And second, and feuilleton. Your feet must be grounded, so we will fall. And then you have to have stamina. You can only speak for 2 minutes. That's not good enough. That's not good enough in any encounter. 2 minutes, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, that's the House, eh? That's the House. So, in any encounter, 2 minutes is nothing. In any encounter, you can qualify it, Mr. Speaker. This is Honorable House. Mr. Speaker, what they're not saying, Mr. Speaker, in the matter before this honorable House. I want to take this time, Mr. Speaker, not only to compliment the Minister of Finance, I also see the most distinguished Financial Secretary present and a staff and all the permanent secretaries who are here. I want to commend them for the support so far, because the government by itself cannot proceed on its agenda to achieve its goal without this technical support. And thank you very much. But Mr. Speaker, very, very, very strong in this, in black and white, that can be seen clearly, that 98% of what is being proposed for approval of this honorable House, Mr. Speaker, is by way of our local circumstance. And what is that, Mr. Speaker? In the main, the same thing they want to kill the CBI, Mr. Speaker. They're not seeing that. They're not able to see the unforeseen, Mr. Speaker. I'm not surprised. And they're not seeing 2% from grant, 0% loan. That demonstrates, Mr. Speaker, in the current environment we're living globally, that this government is serious and is about fiscal resilience, fiscal management, and fiscal prudence. They're not saying that, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I want to go back, because whenever they speak, Mr. Speaker, via Zoom, that's very strong, and the various talk shows, Mr. Speaker, they say the government has no plan. We have no plan. But, Mr. Speaker, grounded in what before us this morning, every measure you see, Mr. Speaker, is geared towards achieving a particular goal articulated, Mr. Speaker, in our national resilience development strategy, Mr. Speaker, with a time horizon of 2030. One, Mr. Speaker, geothermal, energy. You go to that document, you see emphasis is in place on geothermal development. And what does it mean for us? Not only you heard the distinguished Dr. Henderson, the other minister, spoke about geothermal, but you like to talk, Mr. Senator, about green and resilience. What does it mean if we're to go geothermal and hydro? What does it mean to decarbonizing our national grid? What does it mean? That is the kind of debate, Mr. Speaker, we need to have. And that is what we're trying to achieve here, Mr. Speaker. Okay? Consistent with our goals articulated in the strategy I just spoke about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, NEP, every time they're on the radio, NEP cannot get work, cannot get paid. Now we're coming to before this honorable House, asking for approval. If we're really interested about the plight of the people who are clean on the street, we define, Mr. Speaker, on the National Employment Program, and they are not limited only to those great Dominicans who are beautifying our roads. They're in the private sector and they're in the public sector, Mr. Speaker. They're in small business. Do you understand that? Now, before you know, you're not supporting it? And Mr. Speaker, while we're doing all these things, Mr. Speaker, this government has to find money for 17 social programs every month. 17, Mr. Speaker, plus electoral reform. But yesterday, Mr. Speaker, that yesterday they were paying delegates to vote for each other, but they're talking about campaign financing. In that thing, you know, they're paying delegates to vote. You understand? In a delegate conference, but they want campaign financing in our national election laws, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. on the side. So, 16 social programs. 17, sorry. Yes, you can. NEP, Mr. Speaker. Free school books, free school buses, free lunches, Mr. Speaker. Concession and duty-free concession, Mr. Speaker. 16 above, Mr. Speaker, for free medicals. Free medicals for 18 and below, Mr. Speaker. And single mothers with toddlers. Free health care, Mr. Speaker. And this continues. That is what this measure is all about, to give support about, Mr. Speaker. That is what a caring government is all about, Mr. Speaker. That is what the Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker. So they cannot see those things because they don't care about people, Mr. Speaker. You just came in a party, you're not even a member, you don't have a membership for leadership. But the Prime Minister must resign. But you just come. You don't have weight on. You don't have stamina. You're talking softly, but you want to run for leadership. You're cool. But you have to ride up to the plate, Mr. Speaker. You ever heard a song? You know a song? Woman don't like soft man. Man, what's up? Softly. That's not about soft and smiling and, no. You have to be serious. It calls for a certain level of gravitas. That's why people take it seriously, Mr. Speaker. And that is what we're presenting, Mr. Speaker, in this honorable house, about the Dominican people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one grammar school was actually first established, 18 something, so many years ago. The member of Parliament, Rose, was not born. But she bantered, Mr. Speaker. She fought for the expansion of the Dominican Grammar School. It's happening now, Mr. Speaker. And that will be the biggest secondary school in the Caribbean. The biggest secondary school in the Caribbean. Are you seeing what is taking place outside there, Mr. Speaker? The massive structure. And we're coming there, not asking for a loan or our own money. We're asking for you to approve to do our own thing for our children. You do about unforeseen. And you did not see the liquid we were going to get yesterday. Unforeseen. You think so? You have to be able to see. And how can you not see if you have spectacles? You have glasses, you still cannot see. If you're long-sighted or short-sighted, you use concave or what? Or convex. Which one are you in? Are you blind-sighted or something? This thing in black and white right there, you're not seeing them things there before you? Talking about unforeseen? Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, $50 million for a Dominican Grammar School, I support it. Because this government is about education. What is going to make a country great, Mr. Speaker? Health, education, unity, prosperity, Mr. Speaker. Those are the 4 fundamentals to push a country forward. And every measure in this thing is meant towards achieving that, Mr. Speaker, because of the Dominican Labour Party administration, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, housing. Housing. They don't care about people. And a number of us who came from the Guay, that's why the fellas have a beef with us, you know. Dr. Vincent is a doctor. He wouldn't send you back street. My grandmother went into something like that. Look at him today. Who is Vince? The honorable Prime Minister is my auntie. A big man now, doing good for the country, Mr. Speaker. Who is he? Ray Blackmore, from Picatima. Who is Ray Blackmore? I'm a big man, boss man. Boss man, bro. I'm a big man. When I say big, but you were not able to confirm yesterday, you wanted to fight yesterday. That's the case. You know they confirmed yesterday. You confirmed your beating yesterday. That's why you confirmed. So, Mr. Speaker, the House is meant to have a debate, and you can be humorous sometimes. But when you come in, Mr. Speaker, to a fight, you have to come and fight clean. You have to be strong, you know. You have to be strong. So not because you're fat and you're stumpy, you're strong, you know. Understand? Because you don't have lalin. Now your lalin is? Lalin? You should be able to see when you go down, you have to be able to stay down in the water for a long time and come up with some lambi. Mr. can't do that, he'll die. He'll burst. So if you do not have lalin, Mr. Speaker.
Lalin is what? Interpret.
Yes, well, you're able to hold your breath for a long time, and to test your lungs resilience. All right? And to ensure that while you're doing that, water doesn't go in your lungs because you're drunk.
So we will use lung capacity here.
Yes, sir. Because those of us I know you might not know that because you're from Roosevelt. Most Roosevelt's can't swim. But those of us from the West Coast, we can swim. So, Mr. Speaker, and I want us to bring a sense of seriousness into the debate. Because, Mr. Speaker, those of us who raise poor, you know the reality growing up. When you have 6 people in a room, in a house, sleeping in what you call a la salle. And I want to recognize the most distinguished senior minister, Honorable Oswin, is of the house there right now. A big man too, and he's there. You know what I'm saying? So he knows, Mr. Speaker, and he can share to it, and a man of the revolution, that how it was before for all of us poor children raising 6 and sleeping in the drawing room. You had no mattress and bedding, you call it bedding? That is what the Labour Party met. That is what they met in this country. And when you had a big foam, you had many siblings who used to pee that they put outside to dry. Let us be serious about it. That is what we met in 2000 when we came, in 2004. Now look at Dominica now because of the modern housing that we're doing. Look at, just drive next to the NDC building and see this beautiful structure, this apartment type of international standing because of the Member of Parliament for Rosso and the Dominican Labour Party, Mr. Speaker. That is what it's about, Mr. Speaker. You go around the country, over 100 is being built in Granby, Kenfield, and my good friend, my pal right there, building that thing in Jordan and more to come, Mr. Speaker. And you're not seeing that? What is unfortunate in that for you not to see? And you want to put up a name and say, I'm an engineer. All of us inside have a degree, including myself. I'm an engineer. Because I have a degree, that makes you qualified to be a leader of a party. You don't want to sweat because you come in it often slow, softly, you know? You're like a con man, you want to be a leader. No! That's what's happening there. Not so. All right? You think Fountain easy? Dr. Fountain. So all you complaining, he was paying delegates yesterday, paying delegates all that night before, and I want to talk about campaign reform, financial reform, what do you call it? Campaign financing, and then all in campaign, all you paying all the people. So, Mr. Speaker, that's it. I want to talk about this housing thing. So now we have moved from La Salle, drawing room, to master bedroom. With your washroom in a master bedroom. In most of the apartment, like we go to the gym, and I saw she have class like myself and all people. You have double master bedrooms over there from La Salle, from drawing room. And this is replicated throughout the country, Mr. Speaker. From La Salle to master bedroom, with 2 washrooms, Mr. Speaker, drawing room, recreational area. That is what this is about, Mr. Speaker. And as I heard from the Prime Minister, during the course of this week, before the Christmas, 54 families, for the first time in their life, long before the Labour Party, they'll be having keys to modern homes, Mr. Speaker. This is what this thing is about, Mr. Speaker. 54 families no longer have to wet, Mr. Speaker. No longer have to sleep in the drawing room. No longer have to go outside to use the bowel. And before us, before Labour Party, before us, toilet paper was a luxury for most people in Dominica, a lot of people in Dominica. Ask my good friend from Dealers there, from La Plaine. But as if you know, I had Wilson paying the bill. If you're going to use a bail leaf, and you have answered that, and you pass that down and sting you, think how easy? Hold the scratching. That's what you guys laughing. Hold the scratching, you take up some bail leaf to substitute for toilet paper, you don't have it. You don't have the toilet paper. You're outside already, you know. You don't stick up some bail leaf and pass that there. Next the whole day, you're in school, you cry and say, what happened to you, know? You show shame. The redness are still singing there, you know. And only not seeing that. Unforeseen. So you cannot see the apartment up there. You cannot see or you go to Kainago territory. I want to commend him for the Kainago territory. It has been transformed. New homes. And you're talking about unforeseen, you're not seeing them? Delbert, Senator. Well, Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I have to say that I know what I'm talking about. You keep on calling my name. You see? But Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I really feel a sense of vindication again for the party and the country, insofar as what we are doing in geothermal. Because it's not coming. It is there, Mr. Speaker. So think about it, Mr. Speaker. When we will have, Mr. Speaker, an energy mix of hydro and geothermal. And if you're talking about resilience, if you're talking about building the first climate resilient country in the world, we have to make sure that we build proper roads that are resilient to the element of nature. And likewise, our energy grid has to be built in such a way. And geothermal, Mr. Speaker, is more resilient than any other form of energy to hurricanes, etc., because the energy comes from underground. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we are doing, I'm pursuing the plant, but we are addressing the transmission lines, Mr. Speaker. All, Mr. Speaker, get towards achieving our goals, Mr. Speaker, under the National Resilient Development Strategy from now to 2030, Mr. Speaker. Geothermal, new airport, building our roads properly. You don't see, Mr. Speaker, what $200 million has been spent on the East Coast Road.
They're driving in it and they're still talking about unforeseen. The contract was signed for the road from Louisville going all the way back to Bacatel, Mr. Speaker. So very soon, Mr. Speaker, our main roads will be 100% resilient, Mr. Speaker. That is what the Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker, the government. So I hope, Mr. Speaker, after I've said all this, that they're going to make it their business, all right, to read and to see things, Mr. Speaker. And because if you can't read your bills, you're not going to be able to read the defeat you're going to take, Mr. Speaker. So you came here this morning, bandé, all of a sudden, what do you call it by then? Ready. All of a sudden, a sudden sense of, is muscular now, all of a sudden. I want to fight. That is not characteristic of you, Mr. Senator. You're always a cool guy, talking nice, and nicey, softly. So be yourself. Be yourself. I never pretended to be who I'm not, Mr. Speaker. Rayburn is Rayburn, what you see is what you get. So Delbert, Senator, be who you are, what you see is what you get. You cannot see too well, you are not able to see the unforeseen. Continue being that way, Mr. Speaker. And that's who you are, you do not make yourself. Right? It's either you're soft or either you're hard. And you are soft, so remain soft, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I stand to wind up the discussion for the approval of the supplementary estimates, but I'm not want to be repetitious, but I'll just want to mention a few salient features there. Firstly, in terms of the sourcing of the funds, it is important to recognize that 2% of the funds are grant and 98% are from local means. So just to reiterate the fact that these are not loans on the government. So we have to consider this very, very important part of the supplementary estimates, that they are not loans, as was mentioned earlier. It's also important to recognize that compared to last supplementary, we have a significant decrease in the contingency fund warrant. So that is of great importance in this supplementary. But the areas where the money is being spent, Mr. Speaker, I would rather not we look at it from different isolated areas. We have to look at how does all of this fit in with the modern economic infrastructure that we're building in Dominica. And for instance, we know the significance and the importance of the Citizenship by Investment program. We know all the different developmental projects going on and that these are funded by the Citizenship by Investment program. And we also recognize that since we are second in the CBI index, and we would love to stay there, although for the past couple of years we've been first in the CBI index. But it just shows the importance we put in terms of us staying high up in the CBI index, because we know the significance of the CBI program. We know all the different development projects that it finances. And for us to remain top on the CBI list, we have to have an efficient due diligence program. So this is money very well spent, if you were to ask me, Mr. Speaker. We also know the significant part that education plays in our development agenda. So any money being spent on education is money well spent. But we must also put this into context, because we also have 6 other schools being built. And one of these schools is a technical and vocational school, which would supply the technical and vocational human resource for all the development programs that we have, whether it's the airport, whether it's the marina, whether it's the cruise village, whether it's the cable car, whether it's geothermal. So this is where the whole thrust in education comes in, and this is a very significant part of our development. Mr. Let alone this, even in terms of housing. So we recognize how important housing is, not just merely from a climate resilient point of view, but also in terms of dignity for people, in terms of making people's circumstances more comfortable. And that is the way they can even develop themselves, whether it's educationally. You have to try to imagine a family with lots of kids, and they have a comfortable house with geothermal energy. They can study better. They'll just function much better. So all of this, housing comes with a lot of different advantages, even from a hygiene point of view. So all of this does make a very significant part. Dr. Henderson did mention about the geothermal and injection wells. I won't go over this again, but we recognize that obviously a country like ours, how significant and important a renewable, reliable source of energy is. That would obviously affect the tariff and obviously make us more attractive for foreign direct investment and our responsible nature in terms of cutting down our carbon footprint. So all of these are very significant areas that the money has been well spent, and they all complement the entire picture of our development agenda, whether it's education, whether it's housing, whether it's renewable energy, whether it's in terms of our due diligence for our citizen by investment program. And these are all very, very significant interventions that the supplementary addresses. So in all fairness, we have to admit that this supplementary estimate, this is really prudent budgeting for sure, and is responsible management of the public finances, which is underlined in this supplementary, and obviously dedicated fiscal responsibility. So Mr. Speaker, just to address, the Prime Minister did mention it, but obviously if we're having a certain program, a certain project going on, and then we can go a little faster, which is what this government is all about. Maybe the truth is we're just ahead of the curve, and the truth is we're just so advanced in our development that we're not waiting, we're not wasting time. If the opportunity there is to go forward, we shall go forward. That's the whole pragmatism associated with this government. So if anything, I think people should, or someone, the listening public, should appreciate how pragmatic we are in terms of how we get things done quickly and fast, which is really what the Prime Minister was explaining in terms of the rate and the pace of construction. We're ahead of the curve, so to speak. So, Mr. Speaker, I think both sides, we should agree approving this supplementary estimate is the appropriate thing to do. Thank you very much.
This concludes the debate on the supplementary estimates. The supplementary estimate shall not be referred to a committee of supply of the whole House. House is in committee. And the question is that I report the supplementary estimate to the House. The question is that the estimate for $103,621,922.64 be approved. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The supplementary estimate is approved. We had a slight error. Let's proceed, Dr. Mack.
Okay.
Let's continue.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Appropriation 2023-24 Act 2012 be read a first time. Second.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024, Act 2024.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move the second reading of the bill shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024 Act 2024.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024, Act 2024.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024 Act 2024 be read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The bill will now be read a second time.
Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024, Act 2024.
I move that the bill shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024 Act 2024 be read a third time and passed.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be shortly entitled Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024 Act 2024 be read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024, Act 2024.
The bill has been read a third time and passed accordingly. Too busy, too busy.
Speaker, I seek your permission. The resolution on Cuba, we would prefer that if it's taken a bit later in the proceedings. I don't know if I can move a motion for an amendment. The Prime Minister is not here. Not now, after the other motion, so as to ensure that the Cuban ambassador is present in the House when it's being read. I regret.
Yes, so you could move the motion, yes.
No.
Yeah. Okay. But, Honorable Henderson, you wanted to do the motion now? No, you're just saying let us proceed with this, the next item. Okay, let's proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled, resolution. Okay. Whereas, Mr. Speaker, whereas Section 37 of the Finance Administration Act, Chapter 6302 of the 2017 revised laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica state that no guarantee involving any financial liability